Hello friends, Miss Natalie here, and today I am going to show you how to do the Elements of Art sampler. I have my sketchbook, my pencil, my eraser, watercolor pencils for the color part, and I've grabbed a ruler, but you can use any straight edge that you have because this is not for measuring, it's just for making a line. So we're going to start by making that line. We're going to kind of divide our paper into fourths by making a cross from one edge. If you don't have a straight edge, you can do this. You can put your pencil down in the corner and just drag it across to the other corner. And it won't be perfectly straight, but that's okay because we're not really worried about perfectly straight. And then we're gonna make a plus. So we made an X and a plus because what we're just doing is dividing our paper into 8 sections. And we're gonna start in the upper section and we're gonna start with line. We're gonna write the word line here, and we are going to just make different kinds of lines. We can make curvy lines and jagged lines and thick lines and thin lines and dark lines and curly lines and all sorts of lines. Just fill that section with lines, just like that. Then we're going to go to this next section and we're going to mark it shape. And I know I'm going kind of fast. That's because I don't want this video to be too long. So you can stop the video and do what I do between each sections. All right, so next is shape. And we're actually going to divide this kind of in half here. And in this part, we're going to make geometric shapes. Geometric shapes are shapes that are straight and have corners. They're shapes with names like squares and triangles and rectangles and rhombuses, and there's another one, trapezoids. All kinds of shapes that have names. They're the shapes that we have in geometry class. Those are our geometric shapes. All right, and in the other section, we're going to draw organic shapes. Those are the shapes that are found in nature, like maybe sort of an apple shape. That's a very blobby apple, or a shape of a leaf. Just things that are, I'm looking at an avocado, there we go, or an egg. Things that are a little more blobby, things that are the way we see them in nature. Maybe that's a puddle of water, or there's kind of the shape of a bean. So we've got our geometric shapes in one section, organic shapes in the other. The next section we're going to do is color. And we're going to take our watercolor pencils and we're going to just fill it in with colors. We can start with, I'm going to make a little line here, so we can start with the primary colors, which are, is that red? That's an orangey red. We want more of a true red. So the primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. Let me find the yellow. There's the yellow and blue. And yes, I'm not staying within the lines, and it's okay if you don't either. Then we can do the secondary colors, which is orange. There's the orange. Orange, green. That's a yellow green. I want a true green. Do we not have a true green? Well, this is the best green we've got. I think I misplaced my true green. And violet. Because orange is red and yellow combined, green is yellow and blue combined, and violet is blue and red combined. And there are all sorts of other colors. There are the neutral colors, which are gray and brown and black and white. So we can put some of those in. There's gray. Here's a brown. Oh, here's a brown. We can leave part of that white and the other bit can be black. And then you can just fill the rest in however you like, with maybe choosing your favorite color out of these. Again, I'm doing this super fast. If you need to stop and do the section, fill in the section, and then come back to the video, please do that. All right, so we've got line, shape, and color. The next thing we're gonna do is space. And we're gonna depict space in two ways. First, we're going to put a little line here because we're gonna show the 3 planes of space of a landscape, which is foreground, middle ground, and background. So we're gonna do a popsicle tree, which I call, or a lollipop tree, you just do a circle and then a shape for a trunk. Use my eraser. So that's my foreground, that's what's in the middle, that's what's in front. Do a line here. Then I'm gonna make a hill for my middle ground. That's kind of what's behind the tree. And then in the very back, I'm gonna do a mountain. Give it a little snow at the top. So there's foreground, middle ground, background. Those are the 3 planes of space of a landscape. The other way we talk about space is positive and negative space. So I'm just gonna make this fish shape here. And the positive space is the space that's made up of, actually make a fish, of the subject. So my little fish here is the subject, and the negative space is the space that's behind it. So that's negative space. And I'm gonna just darken my negative space with my pencil very simply to make it very distinct that the white part is the positive space and the gray part, because this is not a very black pencil, so it's not black, it's gray, is my negative space. And again, you can pause the video now and reproduce these images on your paper for space. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is form. And we can't make actual form here because we're working with drawings and it's 2-dimensional, and form is 3-dimensional. Form is things like sculptures. Sculptures are form based. Things that are 3-dimensional, boxes, spheres, snowmen, bananas, they all have form, I should say. But on a 2-dimensional piece of paper, we can have the illusion of form. And one way to create the illusion of form is with perspective. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw a little line here, and that's our horizon line. And we're gonna draw a box or a rectangle, I should say. And we're going to turn this rectangle into a box by having the edges of it go out to these two little dots. This is called two-point perspective, and that's not right. No, we don't start with a box. We start with a line with two-point perspective. Sorry, we're going to start with a line. There we go. And then we turn it into a box this way. And that's kind of tricky. So let me show you just an easy way to make a box. You can make a diamond. Do the lines down from the diamond and have the bottom. Or you could make like a book shape like this and make the lines up at the top. Another way to create form is through value, where we have a light highlight that shines on one place, and as you get closer to the edge, it gets darker and darker and darker. And if you want to try this, you can, but you don't have to. As long as you have at least one form, one box. There's one other way to make a box that's actually pretty easy, which is you draw a square, you draw another square, you connect the corners, and then you erase the inside, what's inside that box. And then you have a box, which is form. And we can add some value to this to make it really look like it's three-dimensional, because the bottom is in shadow and one side is in shadow and the other side is not. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways to make form. You can choose one of these ways or more than one of these ways and try it yourself. Texture. And texture is the way something feels or the way it looks like it feels. And what I would like you to do is find a couple of objects that have texture that you could slide under your paper and do a side rubbing with your pencil on to get that texture. There should be things that are relatively flat, but also very bumpy. Like, I have this, I don't know if you can see this, but there is a texture on this coaster. So if I put this under my paper and I rub on it, I can see that texture. If you can't find anything to do a rubbing of, and I'm rubbing it with the side of my pencil, then you could also do what's called a implied texture. This is a real texture. It's how something actually feels, although on the paper it's not real because you can't feel the paper. It's just what's left over. But if I say wanted to make a maybe a brick texture, I could make an implied brick texture by just drawing in the bricks, maybe doing some dots for how they, how bumpy and lumpy they can be. This is a very, very quick. And our last section is value, V-A-L-U-E. And value is the lightness or darkness of a color. We talked about value when we were talking about form, because if you add dark to a flat object in some places and light to it in other places, it can make it look three-dimensional. So one of the things we can do with value is called a value scale. And I'm going to make 3 different value scales. The first one is going to be right here. And I'm going to just use the side of my pencil, and I'm going to start with the absolute darkest section, and I am going to just do the darkest color that I can get from my pencil, the darkest value, I should say. I'm going to do as dark as I possibly can. And it probably might look a little shiny because of how graphite looks. And this part is going to be completely white. So this is what I'm headed towards. And I'm going to then go back up to my second section and do it very light. Very, 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 very light. So this is a very light color, or very light value. And then I'm going to go a little bit darker with the next section. Try not to get it too dark. This might be too dark because I'm working towards this really dark section. All right, and the next section is going to be even darker. And the next section is going to be nearly as dark as the last section. There I have from absolute white to the darkest that I can get with my pencil. And I'm going to do that again, but this time I'm going to choose a color, and I'm just going to divide it in 4. And I'm going to do 4 sections this time. Again, I'm going to go from white to the absolute darkest I can get with my colored pencil. These are going to be maybe not as not as much of a gradation because I am doing fewer sections. So I want something that's light and then darker. I feel like to do a good value scale, you need to have at least 4 values. I'm going to add another one because I know I can get lighter than that. Right, yeah. A little bit darker here, darker, and the darkest I can get with my color. And usually you'll do a value scale before you do a drawing in that media with that color, or so that you know what are the different values that are going to be in that color. And finally, I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to do a value scale here, and I'm going to do a cross-hatching value scale. Cross-hatching is a way to create value when you can't do shading, when you have, say, pen. And cross-hatching is doing lines that go one direction and then cross in another direction. And I can do that with these until I've made it as dark as I can, but not really filling in the whole thing, because I'm still doing that cross-hatching. Going across one way and then the other. And then I want to go here. I'm going to go across one way and then the other. And you make it basically darker by having your cross-hatching closer together and more of it. Put a few more in. That makes it darker. A few more. Make it even darker. All right, and that is value, and those are the elements of art. I'm just going to write elements of art, and I am done. So now I can take a photo of this using my computer camera, and I can turn that in. All right, go make your element of art sampler.